Hi everyone. Thank you so much for tuning into my tarot channel. My name is Paulina and I have a couple of messages that I would like to share with you. And I'm going to be uploading a couple throughout the next 24 hours. So I hope you'll tune in because there's some interesting stuff that I've been tuning in to, and I don't have wild hopes that I'll get thousands of views, but I do have some interesting material that has been sort of gestating in my mind, or it's like a petri dish in my mind of bacteria that's growing, but it's positive bacteria. I mean, humanity was built from bacteria, honestly. First organisms came from bacteria. I don't know why I'm saying this. Maybe you've had an experience recently where you felt like something made you feel unclean, like maybe others were making you feel that way. So that's really unfortunate, but the thing is, that's not your stuff. That keeps coming up in my readings. A huge message that I've been getting from my guides is to stay in your own lane. And this is completely coming from my subconscious, actually, because I wasn't thinking this clearly. But to stay in your own lane. So what is your lane? You know, what is your main, like, what are the goals or precepts, as they would say in Buddhism? What is the focus of your life that is more sort of based on morals than what shows as your accomplishments? I think I'm talking about, really what I'm talking about is why I'm doing this channel. Is because I've been through something. I've been through several things, but I've recently been through some really intense stuff in my life that made me see from a different perspective that the only true path for me in my life is the Bodhisattva path, which, if you've read about Buddhism at all, it is the path of the enlightened one who shares their wisdom. I'm not saying I'm enlightened in the sense that I am such an enlightened being that I can, like Jesus or something, or Buddha. I'm saying I've found ways to overcome extreme stuff in my life that has been really wildly hard for me. And now I'm in a place where I want to share with you, with other people, how to do that, because I see how hard it is, and I see how isolated people can become. And even for people who have mental health issues, within the institutions that are there to help us, we can even feel isolated, even within our friend groups, our families. So I'm offering this as my service also to the world. And if money ever comes of it someday, that would be great. I have done readings working with people in the past. It's a very affordable rate, and I see it as more of a donation. So if you're interested, definitely email me. I do personal readings. But the Bodhisattva's path is that of beginner's mind, continual beginner's mind. So no matter what has happened in the past, no matter what things you've been through that have been really challenging, no matter what you've decided about life, to wake up and to decide to begin again, that's beginner's mind. Well, and there's also beginner's luck. So how would a beginner come at this situation? You know, someone who isn't thinking in these thought patterns of trauma and disappointment and can't do it. You know, the other day I had a really interesting experience. I was in New York City and I saw Sandra Bernhardt on the street. And it was really weird because it was in Chelsea and it was just her and me. And I was like, hey, because I have seen a lot of TV and I just know her face. And she smiled and said hi. And then the next day it was announced she was going to be on White Lotus. And I thought that was so bizarre because she's not like so much in the mainstream culture. I saw that as, I love that show, White Lotus, but she's a really controversial person, actually, if you look her up. Because she says kind of crazy stuff and maybe offensive stuff, but I don't know where this is coming out of. She's an amazing artist, is what I'm trying to say. I think a lot of times people who are amazing artists, there's a thin line between genius and madness. You may have someone in your life right now who you're having to be the Bodhisattva with. You're having to be the enlightened one or the bigger person. And sometimes that can be a path that makes us feel resentful. Why do I have to be the one who is giving the benefit of the doubt? Why do I have to be the teacher? Yeah, no, I can feel that resentment. I almost feel like it in my upper back. But I was also doing some trance work the last couple days, some shamanic healing. If you want to look at my posts, I do post like a lot of the tracks I listen to, and I posted some shamanic drumming, like Native American. I'm really into Native American stuff, particularly because I have some South American indigenous blood on my father's side, so I'm very interested in really all tribal cultures. But anyway, so during these meditation trance periods, I was able to really relax and detach from my body. And I had 2 out-of-body experiences, which means for me, I see myself from above. And I'm not saying, you don't have to believe me that that's really happening, but it's all in our mind's eye anyway. My eyes are closed. But really what happens is when you become detached from your limbs and the nervous system can detach, you have a proprioceptor. I'll write it, the term down. I say words wrong sometimes. Proprioceptor, I think. Like your brain starts to think, where am I? And then so you locate yourself in your mind. And that's what many scientists would say out-of-body experience is, that you're in your mind looking for yourself because you can't find yourself during a deep meditation, so you see yourself from above in your mind's eye. I would say that's actually definitely true, but also it's astral projection. It's a way for us to look above and see what we're going through. And I really recommend that to you, to get into some deep trance work and look above at yourself as if you were some other person. And what do you notice about this person? What are they going through? How might they be acting? And how can you have compassion for how they're acting? What are some ways you could make their life easier? And how can you see, when you look upon yourself as another person, how the world may have been unfair to them? Or how they've really tried and maybe some things haven't worked out, and having compassion for that self. I'm in a group called Al-Anon, and in that group we talk a lot about detachment, and then the sense they talk about it is detachment from worrying. Sorry, I'm having some back issues. This detachment from worrying about the addict, but my offering of detachment is detaching from these painful, intense emotions that you may have been experiencing, and seeing them from a once removed perspective, becoming the witness. And actually, that is a way to build compassion for ourselves. And once you can do that, you can build more compassion for others. Not that we have to integrate, it's not that we have to integrate those who have hurt us into our lives in the same way that they may have been. Boundaries are super important. But the Bodhisattva path teaches us that sorry, I'm starting to stutter. I just stutter when I channel. That to expand our mind and our consciousness, once we've become awakened, the only next step is to heal and expand the world. And it becomes a karmic and cosmic duty. And that does entail forgiveness. And that's really what the reading is about, is not bragging about my Bodhisattva path, is that forgiveness is not something that we can do mentally. Because when we come from the mind and from the, even from any of these things up here, crown chakra, we get really lost in the thoughts of how we can't forgive, we can't see how this person could do this, how this betrayal could happen. When we get down here, we connect with some of those feelings of hurt and betrayal, and it's really hard. And then step 2 is to watch those feelings. So part 1 is connecting, feeling them, not brushing them off. And part 2 is watching them. How does, if you were another person watching yourself, how is this stuff making this person feel? You know, how is it to watch them go through it? And what are some steps you could take to make their life better, meaning you? Because a lot of the ailments and issues that we have in life are from non-forgiveness. And I know there's so many annoying trite sayings like, I was gonna say, instead of trying to forgive, try to focus on healing. But that gets very vague. But there's a lot of sayings like, oh, if you don't forgive, you're swallowing poison and hurting yourself instead of the other person. And the truth is, being a human entails having a wide range of emotions, and sometimes we can encounter those negative, toxic feelings of hate, anger, rage, betrayal, pain, fear, how could you kind of feelings about other people. And those feelings are so valid. When we forgive, it's not that we're condoning this behavior or saying it was okay. And I don't like to think of the poison analogy because that's self-punishing. Because a lot of people, when we're in trauma, you may feel hatred. Say you've been a victim of a horrible crime. Yeah, you may feel some hatred. Instead of pushing those feelings away, connecting with them, letting them be there. We're not going to act on them. We're going to look at them and then accept that this is part of the human experience. We are human. In the Bible, Matthew says, if you've asked to be forgiven, forgiven, you will be forgiven. And a lot of people might say, well, I'm the victim here. Why should I have to forgive? And there's nothing that I need to be forgiven for. And it's not how you're thinking. It's forgive, live that principle in your life of forgiveness. And you will see that you also are not perfect. Maybe you haven't done abusive, horrid things like someone's done to you, but as time goes on in your life, if you keep forgiving and keep every day just forgiving a little bit more, just a little bit more, you're going to forgive yourself for having those toxic feelings. Okay, that's what it is. You'll be forgiven for having those feelings of hatred or rage towards some other person that we don't want to have those feelings in our bodies. Okay, so that's the only message for now. And I do have some tarot and some astrology, synastry stuff coming up, but thanks so much for tuning in.